Hi everyone, I'm Chloe and I'm from EngLang Pro. And today I'm going to be talking to you about how to prepare for your EngLang exam. EngLang Pro has a bunch of YouTube videos up about more specifics in terms of what you should put in your short answer questions, AC and essay. But this video is a little bit more of a sort of overall look at once you've sort of finished the content, and even once you haven't finished the content. Once you finish the content, you're feeling like the exam is coming up. How should you go about preparing for your exam? What do you need to do? Um, to make you feel as confident and prepared for your exam as you can be. I scored 50 in English language in 2023. So all of these recommendations, I suppose, are based off what worked for me. Um, and I mean, in saying that, going through these, like when I was doing them, did I necessarily know that it was going to work out that way? No. So it's definitely normal to have a lot of uncertainty and like always feel like, oh, I should have done more. Like I feel like I haven't done enough. And I certainly felt like that as well. Um, but I mean, and even this, like you won't be able to do every single one of these things. And so just being content with the fact that you're not going to be able to do everything ever. You're never going to be 100% confident going into your exam, but just doing enough so that you feel like you're gonna cook on the exam and the exam's not gonna cook you. So being able to walk into the exam like with your head held up and being like, I know what I'm doing, is basically what my goal was, and where I want to get you guys at too. So this is more about how to revise, how to practice, I suppose, especially if you are in a school that doesn't have a very strong EngLang program, or if it's difficult for your teacher to sort of mark a lot of students' work, if there's heaps of you, if it's difficult to sort of get feedback, or if you're not sure if that feedback is going to be accurate or not. There's definitely ways, and through using stuff like EngLang Pro, that you can ensure your work is like going to be just as good as the rest of the like other schools in the rest of the state, even if you're at some sort of disadvantage. So keeping that in mind as well. So without further ado, so short answer questions, right? We go into the start of the exam. Everyone thinks that short answer questions are the easiest bit. This can be true because it feels easier to answer them, right? Like they feel easier, but at the same time, sometimes they can put some pretty tricky ones in there. So firstly, to tackle that, obviously doing as many practice questions as you can is always going to be beneficial, and that's something that I'm going to say. Obviously, write as many ACs as you can, write as many essays as you can. Keeping in mind that as many as you can is not 100, and that is maybe not even 20. As many as you can is as many you feel like as you feel necessary for you. And if you get to a point where you're just like, I've written everything, like I've done this so many times, I actually know what I'm doing, don't do any more. That's okay. Yeah, so people are always asking, like, how many do I need to do? Um, as many as make you feel confident. And I'll sort of go through at the end, like what I did specifically. But yeah, so as many as you can. There's old VCAR exams. If you aren't given any other materials, there is those old VCAR exams. I would save the most recent VCAR exam to do maybe in the coming days before your exam. So don't do that too early. Rehearsing a meta language. So basically, for short answer questions and ACs especially, your meta language is the key to your success. So understanding what all the meta language means in depth and being able to analyze that meta language with like prepared phrases as well. At the end of the day, like that's the key to success. You have to be able to do that. So I was a big cue carder, but when I say cue cards, I made more like had my cue cards and I like basically wrote what things were on them, and just put them on my wall. Like they weren't flip over cue cards, though that's good too. I just like covered my wall in information. I think that's a really good idea. Not only are you learning whilst you're writing it down, but you get to see it every day and learn from there. Quizlet works very similar. Or even just like sometimes if I really was struggling to get something in my head, just sit down and almost write lines, write it 10 times. It's not leaving your head after that. Yeah, you should have these go-to phrases to describe the impact of meta language plus line level analysis. So when I say go-to phrases, for example, I would always say at the start of my AC, declarative sentence types are they're best suited to making statements and conveying fact. That's my pre-prepared impact of that meta language. However, that's not specific to this text. So I'm going to write that and then I'm going to make a comment that's specific to this text. Maybe like this declarative in like particular discusses, or conveys information about this topic. So you can't get away with just having that rehearsed go-to phrase, but it definitely made me feel a lot better that I had these go-to phrases so that I didn't have to make it up on the spot. Like I had these prepared. So I definitely recommend doing that, especially for features that you're pretty sure you're going to use, ones that are really common like declaratives. Get someone to test you on them, especially if you've got cue cards. Talking and like trying to verbalize what you're trying to say is really beneficial. I know that it can feel kind of funny, like, but I used to talk to myself. I used to like, that sounds so funny, but I'd be like, okay, so if I'm picking this declarative sentence type, I'm gonna say that it's conveying fact about this, and how is it impacting maybe like the referential function. If I can explain that without any notes in front of me, just to like the wall or to someone else, then it means that it definitely is ingrained in my brain. It's not like I'm reading something and just explaining it from there. So it definitely does help sort of consolidate that information in your head. Practicing and rehearsing your knowledge of purpose and intent, functions and register, and linking these different linking all different features to these points, basically what your whole short answer questions are on, right? So going through like even like tenor, stuff like that, and making sure that you're able to link basically any relevant feature. So if it's going to be register, link all of your informal and formal features to register. Go through and write them all down. How do they link to register? How do they support register? How do they change the register? And then for functions, go through referential function. Think of all the features that you can think of that support that function, list them all down and explain why. Do that for all of the functions. Even the purpose and intent, go through and think of all the different ways that all the different features could impact those purpose and intents. That might take a long time, but you have a long time. I hope this is not the day before your exam. Um, but yeah, so it's almost like you make a massive table of everything that could possibly be asked of you. And then looking back at the practice questions as well and going, okay, what's like frequently asked? You're not going to be able to predict what's asked. No one can predict that for you, but sort of what's likely, what comes up a lot, and what are the types of questions I can get asked. So that's on short answer questions. ACs are sort of similar. So at the end of the day, an AC is just a bunch of short answer questions. Like in each paragraph, you should be almost answering a bunch of short answer questions. If you think about it like that, it can make it a bit easier. So firstly, though, we have to be able to find what to talk about. So going through text and annotating them, especially the sample VCAR responses, annotating the responses and annotating the actual texts, and going like, okay, it's body paragraph 1, I'm going to pick that, and that, and I'm going to talk about that, and that, and plan them, annotate them. Find all the nuanced areas of that text. What does that specific prosodic feature do in that specific line? So go through and annotate as detailed as you can. Mark it up with some highlighters. I certainly enjoy doing that because I felt like really clever looking at my pretty annotated text. So whatever brings you joy. Yeah, so going through and making sure that you can spot everything. If you're struggling to spot things, if you're like, I can never find a normalization, I can never find passive voice, go back, learn what those are again, and have a look at some examples, and then try again and try and spot those things. Keep in mind, obviously, that not everything's in every text. Create plans. I think that is probably my biggest point. For me, I found it really exhausting to try and sit down and write an AC, and same with an essay, to be honest. So I definitely did way more plans than I did actual ACs. I've sort of figured, and this is not necessarily true, you do have to be able to write an AC, and especially to time, but I sort of figured that if I could find the features and I knew what to say about them and I could do that in dot point form, then I was going to be okay on exam day and I was going to be able to do it. Obviously I still did write ACs. But yeah, so going through and just being like, all right, I'm giving myself 10 minutes to plan this AC. What am I putting? And give yourself like dot point what you're going to pick, and then also dot point like potentially some analysis that you might put. So for example, you'd go, okay, I'm going to pick like, inclusive pronoun. I'm going to talk about how it supports the register. I'm going to talk about how it supports like face needs, and then like, sort of like that. And that just like sort of consolidates that you do know how to link like the big map of of English language, and linking from one thing to the other for purposes and purpose and intents, and linking to the features and all of that sort of stuff. I would also make an AC plan for these 4 categories. So this is basically, you're going to be probably picked on like what you're going to get given is going to be similar to one of these. You may also get given a mixed mode one, which is written and spoken. So probably plan for that as well. But keeping in mind that, yeah, you should plan for a spoken formal, spoken informal, written formal, and written informal. You could also get obviously given a mixed register, but basically if you can cover with your most preferred and practice features, which may not be what you write about because you might not be able to find them in the text that you're given, and that's okay. But just making sure that, yeah, you have somewhere to go, hopefully, that you've got like your strongest points, you're good at them, basically. You don't want to go into your AC thinking, I'm going to look for the features that I wrote in my spoken informal. You want to be instead looking for the things that jump out at you off the page. What is different about this text to all the other texts I've seen? And how does this text, I suppose, like, how is it specifically using these features to convey specific things? This is not, you don't want to be looking for the features, you want the features to be jumping out at you. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, so although we do want to prepare our features, we don't want to go in looking for them as such. Same thing, try and verbalize what you put in an AC and how you discuss it. Explain your thoughts to someone else. That'll definitely help you sort of consolidate those ideas. Then for essays, so ensure you've rehearsed and can freely recall all your contemporary examples. So essays are a little bit different in that we actually do have to rote learn some stuff. You do have to come in prepared. You cannot make them up on the spot. I've heard some people try and do that and it will never go well for you. You absolutely need to learn them before you go in. You need to learn who said it, when it was said, where you found it, and what was actually said. Keep them to a minimum of a maximum of, I'd say hopefully under 10 words. I would say under 6 words. It just means it's easier to write and remember. But yeah, so you need to have basically, I'm trying to remember how many I had, but let's say the absolute minimum is 12 because you do need to have prepared. You could get asked a Unit 3 question or a Unit 4 question. Even then, you could get asked a Unit 3 Area of Study 1 question or a Unit 3 Area of Study 2 question. It could be just an informality essay. It could be a mixed informality and formality essay. It could be Unit 4 Area of Study 2. So realistically, I think I prepared 4 contemporary examples for each area of study. So that would be 4, 8, 12, 16. So that then I could sort of mix and match. And then in your essay, you're probably going to do 3 body paragraphs. Wait, hang on. Sorry, I revoked what I said. So when I say 4 examples, I mean 4 body paragraphs for each area of study. So that'd be 4 body paragraphs, and that's 2 examples per body paragraph. So that would be 8, 16, 32, no, 24, 30. I don't do maths, guys. 32. So I would have prepared 32 examples. I was going to say 16 sounds like not that many. 32 examples, which meant that I had such a flexible ability to mix and match them. And I can kind of go through that structure in a second, but it meant that I had so much of an ability to mix and match that I was really prepared for basically any essay topic. It didn't matter where it was from in the study design. I had so many examples that I could actually pick. And so sometimes the thing is, if you only prepare 6 examples, so 1 essay for the entire of informality, what if some of your examples aren't relevant to the topic? So I always had extras on hand. That's why I had 8 examples per area of study. I hope you've listened long enough to not just leave after I said 4. Okay, yeah, so making sure you have enough examples prepared and you've remembered them. How to remember them? Write them on cue cards, put them in a Quizlet, put them on your walls, speak them aloud to yourself. Talk into a voice memo and explain them, and listen to the voice memo when you're walking home from school. That's all of my immediate ideas, but yeah, it does take a lot of work and it does take a lot of repetition and it can be really boring, and I'm so sorry you have to go through that, but yeah, you have to remember them, and that's the only general way to go through it. Yeah, so here I try and prepare an essay for each of the areas of study. Essentially, that's what I've said here. Doesn't mean you'll write one of those essays, does not mean you'll write one of those essays, but it's a good way to prepare. You might even have extra examples that you don't include in those essays that you still might use. So just practice having enough examples for each of the area of studies. Going through the VCAR exams, what I did was I chose my most preferred essay topic from each VCAR exam. So I went and pretended that I was doing the VCAR exams, and I went and I picked my most preferred topic even. So I went, okay, there's 3 topics, I would pick that one. And then I planned for that one. And when I say planned, I probably spent 15 minutes jotting down, okay, I'm going to pick that paragraph, that paragraph, that paragraph. I'm going to talk about this, this, and this, and these are the examples I'm going to use. Then I went back to the same exam and I picked a different topic because I wasn't allowed to do that one anymore, the first one that I picked. out of the other 2, which one would I do next? And then I did the same thing. And then I made myself do the last one. And that means that, like, you're making yourself do these ones that are really hard, because it tends to that we'll go through and we'll just pick the ones that we like. And then what if there's none that you like on the exam? So go through and pick ones that you don't like. Prepare for those. And if that takes a bit longer and you have to think a bit more and you have to get some more examples because you haven't got enough contemporary examples to cover those, then that's what you need to do. It sucks and it takes a long time, but planning is easier than writing essays. I'm not telling you to go and write 3 essays for every exam that there's been. There's like so many. I think I did it down to 2014. Obviously, if they're missing stimulus and stuff, like, use your discretion there. But planning only takes, 15 minutes per plan, half an hour per plan if you want to make it a detailed plan. That shouldn't take you too long, and hopefully it's a little bit easier to like sit down and do that as opposed to sitting down and writing an essay, because I know that's really hard. Ensuring you can mix and match your examples and paragraphs to the question. I sort of talked on that, but basically, let's say you have prepared 4 different examples of informality and different types of informality, and like one of them's informality in an Australian context, and one of them's, informality from like teenagers or something like that. Ensuring that you know in your paragraph which 3 you're going to pick, which 2 you're going to pick, and then like, if I might bring in one from formality, like being able to bring in ones from different paragraphs that you've planned, so that whatever you've chosen to write is the most specific to the topic. Like, at the end of the day, that's like the key goal here, is to make sure that your essay is so specific to the topic that it really fits with the topic and you're answering the question, because a lot of people really tend to like not answer the question and just sort of write a pre-prepared essay. So you need to be able to answer the question. So the more examples you have and you can pull in from different areas, you should be able to answer the question really specifically. Okay, now I'm just going to go through some frequently asked questions that I get. I tutor quite a few year 12s and year 11s doing EngLang and also other subjects. But as well as through EngLang Pro, we hear quite a few of the same questions coming up about exams specifically. So how many practice exams do you need to complete? I reckon I did, including the ones I did like at school in like practice exam time, which is probably like 1 at school that was marked, or maybe 2 at school that were marked, actually, I reckon the whole exam, when I've completed the whole exam, I reckon I did under 10, to be honest. It takes a long time and it was really strenuous. If you don't mind and you can sit there for 3 hours and you can do it, go for your life. Absolutely. I definitely wrote, I probably answered more short answer questions than that. I probably did some like, side quest ACs, but this is, in exam preparation time, not throughout the whole year. But I think my goal at the time was to try and do, or at least plan, all of the exams that they provided me from VCAR. So that's what I would recommend. I'd say that was probably why I did like 10, right? Because I did from 2014. I think that's the lowest they provided, up to 2023, which is about 10. So making sure at least you're completing those, and you can start. And that probably started for me like months before the exam. Once you've got all the content, you can sort of start doing it. Once you've got all the content. When you don't have the content, it's tricky to start doing them, but you should be able to then do just ACs and just short answer questions. When should you actually start revising? Whenever you want, really. I think I started revising when all my SACs finished, to be honest. I didn't have the time or energy or effort to be able to revise before my SACs finished, so it's not like I started revising mid-year, because you can't, like, there's no point, you can't, unless you want to just keep practicing ACs and short answer questions throughout the whole year, which is certainly a good idea. I didn't do that, but you certainly should. But yeah, so there's no specific number. I think if you were going in and you've done 1 practice exam, like, you're obviously at a detriment, so please do enough, but basically enough to the point where I was like, I feel confident, I feel like I've seen pretty much like everything, I feel like I'm prepared. Yeah. If I've definitely heard some crazy stories of people saying, I did like 50 exams, where are you even finding those? But I did like, 50 exams and I did them all under time conditions. No, I reckon I did maybe like 4 under time conditions, maybe. And like that worked for me. But it really depends on what works for you, because I know that someone else might have done the exact same as me and not done as well. So it's like, it very much depends. How can you remember all the examples? There's a lot. Like I said, you need to be actually practicing memorization. So Quizlets, writing things down over and over again, putting them on your wall. I had these cue cards and I just stuck them on the wall behind me, my bedroom doors, so that every time I woke up and I went to open my closet, like I was like, oh yeah, active passive voice, and like you just have to, like, towards the end especially, just embrace your, like, the nerd life that you need to be living. Like, you need to, like, lock in, and that's just how your life's gonna look for a bit. Um, yeah, and I know it's not fun, but yeah, try and romanticize it is what I did. But yeah, so you basically just there's no way to easily cut around it. Quizlet is definitely a good idea if um that sort of suits your learning style. I think that that's a lot more flexible. So if you find that you're like, no, I can't cue card, like I can't, try Quizlet has these things where you can match up examples. Like there's matching games, there's like question answer writing games. That works as well. How can you write faster? In the EngLang exam, you need to write at the speed of light. No, I joke, but you do need to be able to write pretty quickly, just to finish all of the texts. How can you write faster? Practice is pretty much the only way. If you find that your writing when you write quickly is not legible and you're getting told by your teacher that it's not legible, I would definitely investigate how you can work on that, because that would really be like quite a roadblock. But yeah, essentially practice writing, try and do it in cursive if you can. I wrote like half my exam in cursive and then sometimes I would stop because it would hurt my hand. But just make sure that you can finish your texts in the time given. And it might not be that they are the perfect thing as well. So making sure that when you start writing, like it was very frustrating, but I knew that in the exam I would only be able to include a certain amount of examples because I didn't have time to do absolutely everything. So because you can't do it all, you have to be able to pick the most important bits and cut out what's not necessary. So maybe if you're taking too long, think about maybe you're, like yapping on a bit about something that isn't as relevant or something that's not going to get you as many marks. You're never going to be able to write your perfectly worded exam. It just has to be there. What order should you do the exam in? Now, there's lots of different opinions about this and different ways you can go about it. I'll present to you 2 different ways that you can do it. So I did it, basically, I did AC, essay, short answer question, but in the same way, doing basically your AC and your essay first, so whichever version you did that in. My reasoning was, if I accidentally don't have time to do a short answer question, I'm losing less marks. I might lose 2-3 marks, whereas if I miss out on a whole paragraph of my AC, I'm going to lose more marks because the AC and essays are worth double the short answer questions are. So that was my reasoning. The other way you could do it is start with your short answer questions. If you feel like you need to get a bit of a warm up with your handwriting, you need to warm up your thinking, you need to jog your memory a little bit and figure out, okay, yeah, and remembering how to write about all of these things at once, then starting with your short answer questions might definitely ease you into it. Just be mindful you're not spending too much time on your short answer questions. You need to be in and out of there in like 15 minutes. So just making sure that you don't spend too much time. That would be my only point. But yeah, definitely practice. What I would do is practice one way, practice the other, see what works better for you, see what makes you feel more confident. Yeah. I hope you guys are all feeling okay about your exam, and I hope you're not watching this the other day before your exam. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below, and I'm sure one of the team will get to you. Absolutely. But yeah, if there's any other ways that you want to check on what should I revise on more specifically, yeah, feel free to let us know. And don't forget to check out the rest of our videos. Thank you.